make our choices about what room we're going to be in. So today's story is the parable of the Good Samaritan. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law?" He replied, "How do you read it?" He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. 'Look after him,' he said, 'and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have.' Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." And that's Luke 10:25-37. So, it's time to make your choices. If you would like to go downstairs to where we usually have coffee, there's going to be 6 prayer stations for you to take part in, or you can stay here and we're going to have a talk. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to make your choices. Okay, so you've probably noticed there's quite a lot going on your tables. And that's because when me and Brianne were planning this, we're really trying to make the All Ages services work for as many people as possible. So while you might not want to go downstairs to the chaos of prayer stations, you might also not want to just sit and listen to me talk. So there's a bunch of different activities on the tables that you can use as I talk. We're also going to have little group discussion times as well. So you have the power to make choices here and to make this work for you as well as possible. So if you don't want to listen to me and you just want to do the activities on the tables, that's totally fine. And if you don't want to do any of the activities on the table and just listen, that's totally fine too. We are going to have group discussion times, and it's up to you whether you chat to the people around you or just kind of reflect by yourself. If you need more pens or strips of paper, there's a basket by the door with extras. Okay. So let's jump in. Today we are thinking about how as a community we can create safer, kinder spaces, how places of harm can be transformed into places of healing and places of safety. When we were preparing this talk, there's a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. That really kind of interpreted the story in a way that we found really helpful, and that was kind of the basis of what we're talking about today. So here's the quote. "On the one hand, we are called to play the Good Samaritan on life's roadside, but that will only be an initial act. One day, we must come to see that the whole Jericho road must be transformed so that men and women will not be constantly beaten and robbed as they make their journey on life's highway. True compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It comes to see that an edifice which produces beggars must be restructured." So what this is basically saying is, yes, we need to help people who are hurt, but we also need to do things that stops them from being hurt in the first place. Acts of compassion by individuals are really important and they're essential, but they're not the end goal. We want to do something more. We want to transform our communities more so that we're not getting as many people that are hurt. In the parable, the story takes place on the Jericho Road. This wasn't a made-up setting. It was a real treacherous path stretching about 17 miles between Jerusalem and Jericho. It had a drop of over 3,000 feet of elevation, and it was notoriously rugged and winding. So it provided natural hiding places for thieves and made it especially tricky and dangerous for people to go through. Just imagine what it must be like to walk that road by yourself, especially as we're getting later, dark mornings and evenings. Horrific. So while most of us won't face such a physical journey, we can think of the Jericho Road as a symbol for places or systems that leave people vulnerable. I'm sure we can think of many roads to Jericho in our world, whether they are places impacted by poverty or systems that overlook people or the people that we just want to ignore because they're too much bother or they're too difficult. As Christians, we are called to make these roads safer, creating communities where everyone feels loved, protected, and valued. But sometimes our communities, including the church, can be responsible for causing harm, whether that's on purpose or not. Recognizing these moments is not about blaming or shaming anyone. It's about being honest so that we can move from a place of honesty and recognizing the harm that's been done to a place where we're no longer doing harm. But we have to recognize what's been done before we can move forward. Throughout history and even today, the actions of some Christians have caused hurt rather than healing. We know that certain practices or attitudes have excluded or shamed people. Acknowledging this helps us learn and grow together and strive to live out the love and justice that Jesus taught. Sometimes we might even create our own Jericho roads, whether that's in our own lives or the lives of other people, systems and habits that leave us or others vulnerable. When we recognize these, we can work to transform them, making our communities places of welcome and safety instead of harm. So our first group discussion, we're going to have 2-3 minutes for this. And like I said, if you want to just reflect by yourself, that's totally fine. But our question is, what roads to Jericho are there in our communities? Are there roads to Jericho that our communities are responsible for creating or making worse? And when we're talking about communities, we're not just talking about St. John's or Linlithgow. It's whatever community feels most relevant to you. It could be your town, or it could be Linlithgow. It could be the local church. It could be the global church. It could be Scotland, or it could be your street. So we're going to have about 2-3 minutes for that. Okay, if you just wrap up your conversations. So this story is not just a story of the Samaritans helping a man. It's more than that. It's not just about the Samaritan who picked the man up and took him to an inn. It's also about the innkeeper who kept him there and looked after him. Our question today, our all-age question, is very much focused on the word we, not you, because we think it's really important that we acknowledge that this is a community task, caring and making places safer. It's not something that one person can do by themselves. We don't know what happens to the fictional man in this story, whether he makes a full recovery, whether he's traumatized for the rest of his life about what happened, whether he ever walks the road again. We don't know, but what I'm pretty sure we can say is that no matter what happened to him, he probably needed other people to help him. It probably went beyond the Samaritan and the innkeeper. There's probably a whole host of other people in his life that helped him get over this fictional event. Communal support becomes crucial for helping people who have been harmed and on a road to recovery and on a healing journey. We cannot have just one person being responsible for that task. This is where I'm going to start sounding a bit like a therapist. Boundaries are really important when it comes to caring. We need to know what we can give without harming our own well-being. There is no point of us trying to help people if we harm ourselves in the process. We are just as valuable as anyone else, so if we are being harmed, that's not okay. Maybe we are a one-off emergency care provider, like the Samaritan. We can go out of our day to help someone in their moment of crisis, but the Good Samaritan couldn't do that every day of his life. There's no way he could do that. He wouldn't be able to live if that's all he did with his life. Maybe we can provide a space for people to come and heal, but the innkeeper could not have filled every single one of his rooms with people who needed one-to-one care as they recovered from a trauma. He wouldn't have been able to do that. His business would have failed. Just like them, we need to find what we can offer, and we need to stop when we've offered what we can and accept that we might need to pass the baton on to someone else to finish the job. This is why communal care, communal support is so important. So we can say, sorry, I can't help with that today. So that we can say no without feeling guilty. It means we're not going to get burnt out. It means that we can keep going and we can keep supporting people because we're looking after ourselves too. We don't want to become someone who helps so much that now we need all of the help. There's no point to that. That's just a repeating circle that's not causing anyone to actually, any spaces to be transformed. So the next question is, it can be a group discussion or it can be a personal reflection for you. It's up to you. And here it is. Think about your own approach to supporting others in need. Are there times when you find it hard to set boundaries or feel you've given more than you can sustain? Or maybe you hold back because of uncertainty or fear of being overwhelmed. Where might you need to give more or perhaps find a healthier balance in order to support others while also caring for yourself? Spend a moment reflecting on where you feel called to find that balance. So if you want to start by reflecting on your own and then talking to people around you, or just having a group discussion, it's up to you. Okay, wrap up your conversations. I'm so used to working with young people, I actually can't cope with how quickly you actually do what I ask. That's mental. There will always be roads to Jericho that are unsafe. There will always be ones that we don't notice, that we don't see as unsafe, and other people are telling us that it's unsafe. There will always be ones that we kind of want to ignore that they exist because we feel uncomfortable or we don't know what to do about them. That's why we have to do this as a community, because the more voices we have, the more information we have, the more perspectives we have, the more able we are to actually understand where harm is happening and do something about it. Just one of our perspectives is not enough to know, because there are harms that happen that I'm not aware of because of the life that I've led. And there are harms that I've had that other people don't understand because they've not led the life I have. So by coming together and discussing it, it gives us the chance to actually notice. A form of care that we can offer is listening, even when we're uncomfortable, even when we maybe don't agree that harm's been done, or we don't think it's been that bad. Listening, and without offering judgment, is a form of care that I think is really underappreciated and under-recognized as a form of care. To create true safety, though, we need a vision of a God who gives people in the most trying and debilitating circumstances a sense of well-being. Not a God that says, oh, it'll all be fine, or have you tried praying, or God doesn't give you anything that you can't handle, but a God that actually meets people where they're at in the suffering and makes them feel like they can get through. This vision calls us to compassion and solidarity, knowing that each person's perspective adds to our understanding. Together, we can build communities that are places of healing, safety, and justice, transforming today's roads into paths of kindness and welcome. So our third group discussion: what roads to Jericho have already been transformed? Whose voices do we need to listen to as a community as we try to create safer roads to Jericho? The voices that we need to listen to might be our own voices. Maybe we need to finally listen to ourselves. Maybe we need to listen to the voices of the marginalised, the cast aside, our families, friends, neighbours, the people that we want to walk by on the street because they're a bit awkward or uncomfortable. So yeah, we're going to have a few minutes to discuss this question. Okay, let's just wrap up our conversations. So if we go back to our all-age question, how are we as a community creating safer roads to Jericho for everyone? And the answer is we're doing it in so many ways already, which is wonderful. We're doing it through supporting organisations like the New Well, through Youth Space, through Connect groups, through having a safeguarding team and a pastoral care team, through speaking out, through going to learning streams and talking about tricky topics, through giving to charity, through having community with each other, and through volunteering. We're all doing it in our own ways. I'm not here saying that we're doing it all wrong and that you all need to shame yourselves. That's so not what we're talking about today. By supporting one another, we can do a better job. We're not going to bow under the pressure. We're not going to snap because we're trying to do it all by ourselves. There's always more to do. But our hope for today is that these discussions put us in a place where we can do the work without being harmed ourselves, where we know what works to be done, and we're listening to the right people about what work needs done, and that we're not needing saved ourselves at the end of it, and that we don't become the next road to Jericho that we need to create safety again. We want to be able to create safety and stay safe ourselves. So that was really the key takeaway for today, is we have to look after ourselves as we do this work. And that's us. The kids are just coming back up, and everyone else that was in the services, and